Yes.
Last 7 o'clock, the council meeting in order, please. Come up, please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please. Present.
Coe.
Here.
Bilczewski. Here. Pat.
Here.
Funkhauser.
Here.
Readers.
Here.
Spears.
Here.
Teeling. Here. We have a quorum.
Okay, do we have any amendments to tonight's agenda? We have no presentations, no public hearings. Do we have any citizen comments tonight on agenda items? Anything that's before the council this evening? John, you want to talk about prep work? We'll give you a chance. We'll give you Yeah, we'll give you a chance to get to it. That's fine. Okay, anyone else on agenda items? Okay, if not, I want to take a motion to approve the consent agenda. So moved. Part of the motion. Aye. Great.
On the bill,
There's no minutes for approval either. Bills for payment, $513,678.73. Moving right on to mayor's report. We have a resolution in the packet in support for state funding for the northern route of Route 47 corridor. So I will entertain a motion to approve the resolution in support for state funding of the northern Route 47 corridor and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute.
I'll move. Second.
Comments or questions on the resolution? This is the stretch north of Yorkville, Kennedy Road, up across street with funds that I had similar to the resolution we passed back in February. I'm not going to read the whole resolution, but it is in the packet for anyone to read. Comments or questions? Roll call, please.
Bilczewski. Here. Coe.
oh, I'm sorry, aye.
Coe.
Aye.
Teeling.
Aye.
Readers. Pat.
Aye.
Wolfsville.
Aye.
Spears.
Aye.
Funkhauser.
Aye.
Motion carries.
We have the Public Works Committee report. I'll hand it on to our Public Works Committee chairman.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to engage Geneva Construction to complete public improvements in an amount not to exceed $64,788.05 and to complete private improvements in an amount not to exceed $52,476.01 as described in the memo dated September 3rd, 2013 from EE Engineers.
Second.
Comments or questions on this one? Roll call, please.
Coe.
Aye.
Teeling.
Aye.
Readers.
Aye.
Pat.
Aye.
Wolfsville. Spears.
Aye.
Funkhauser.
Aye.
Bilczewski.
Aye.
Attorney Moore with the items.
No, please.
Okay. Motion
Correct.
carries.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the proposal from NCAP to complete necessary work on the detention basin in an amount not to exceed $52,235 and authorize staff to execute.
Second.
Comments or questions on that one? Roll call, please.
Spears.
Aye.
Funkhauser.
Aye.
Bilczewski.
Aye.
Coe.
Aye.
Teeling.
Aye.
Readers.
Aye.
Pat.
Aye.
Wolfsville.
Aye.
Motion carries.
And 2013 Road Federal Roads Program, I'd like to make a motion to award the contract for MFT funded portion of the 2013 Road to Better Roads Program to B Construction Company in an amount not to exceed $232,028.67 and to award the contract for the non-MFT funded portion of the 2013 Road to Better Roads Program to B Construction Company in an amount not to exceed $454,955.16.
Second.
Comments or questions on this one? Ms. Smith.
I have a few comments regarding deconstruction. The last job that they performed for Yorkville, We had many complaints about the type of work that they did give us, and I would like to suggest we go with the second highest bidder due to their performance or lack of performance.
Which town?
The one downtown, I think it was, was it Foxborough? Yeah,
That patch is pretty.
really bad. Eric, do we have problems with their work on Van Emmon?
No, the Van is sort of a much larger project. It's meant to be temporary pavement. It's not meant to be a finished product by any means. That portion of Route 47 is going to get torn up at least 3 more times before this project is complete.
So we have paid for that, though?
No, we do not. That's part of the state project. That is not our project. That part of it is not any of our jurisdiction.
I think the quality comments on, so this is the east leg of Van Emmon, at Route 47, were related to the fact that they paved late in the day, and we've heard that the estimator for the project that was on site underestimated the amount of pavement they needed. So I think for a day, maybe 2 days, it was slightly uneven. They came back through, they paved it again, and the end result obviously is still that it's temporary pavement, so it's not going to be perfect, but it was remedied.
It was, and the west side was remedied to a much higher degree even because they plan on closing the east side again.
So we can monitor it closely?
We do.
I know they were much cheaper than anyone else. I know they were 12% under our engineering estimate. What were they below the next highest bid, about 60,000?
They were 6% underneath the second bidder, 10% underneath the third. And obviously they have a scale of efficiency because they're on site for
Right.
states, so they don't have to put in trucks. So they have an advantage there.
They're doing the old jail parking lot as well.
Right. That's something that has to do.
Get used to them.
Yes.
So, any other comments or questions on that one? Roll call, please.
Teeling. Aye. Readers.
Aye.
Cott.
Aye.
Wolfson.
Aye.
Spears.
Nay.
Funkhauser.
Aye.
Wilczewski.
Aye.
Cone.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Moving on to Economic Development Committee report, I'll turn that over to our Economic Development Committee Chairman.
Make the motion to approve an ordinance approving the Fourth Amendment to the redevelopment agreement for the downtown Yorkville redevelopment project area, Imperial Investments LLC, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute.
Second.
Comments or questions on this? I know all the changes we talked about 2 weeks ago were incorporated and those payments are being achieved. Is there something else?
Kind of. It's more of a, we haven't had a committee yet. Past 2 committees have been postponed or canceled. So, in my newbie opinion, I think we should kind of hold off on this and table it. Bring it to actual EDC and actually sit down with it.
Yes, sir.
Well, I'll be repetitive from 2 weeks ago, which I'd like to be often. The changes were made to, and I appreciate the wording as far as guaranteeing payments out of the HIT, not out of the general funds. However, to go back to what I said 2 weeks ago, I still think the 80-20 split is disproportionate. This is not something the city's asking to do. This is not something the city needs to do, and we're paying 80% of it. We're doing it at the request of the developer to bury the power line because they're, for all safety purposes, unsightly. They're not unsafe. They're not working. All the Coke and I have to beg, borrow steel to get flooding issues done, and on the south end of town. And I understand it's TIF money. I understand it's separate funds, but still, now all of a sudden we're willing to just put TIF money when we're still neglecting the east side of Route 47. That's something that's going to be coming up. And I'm sure they're going to be asking for TIF funds. And I just think the 80-20 is ridiculous. This is not something the city wants or needs. And it's the request of the developer. And if it stays at 80-20, I'm voting against it. So I'm okay with Alderman Frieder's suggestion that we table this. And I'm not proposing a motion to table because I don't want to cut off anybody's ability to speak yet. But At this point, if it goes to vote, I will be voting no at 80-20.
Any other comments or questions? Yes, sir.
As stated before, we have time to discuss this before any action has to be made as we're waiting for the comment of the study. Once we have that, we'll know the cost, and then at that point, we can approve and assess it. I think my opinion would be to table this here, and once that report comes back in, we reassess the splits and the agreement at that point.
Anyone else?
Support that too, bring that to EDC, or EDC.
Any other discussion before we get a motion to table? Last one wants to make a motion to table back to EDC. Leaders?
I make a motion to table at the EDC.
There we go.
I'll second it.
Roll call, please.
Reuters.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Colosimo.
Aye.
Spears.
Aye.
Funkhauser.
Aye.
Olszewski. Aye. Coe.
Aye.
Teeling. Aye. Motion carries.
All right, we have a public safety committee report, no administration committee report, anything from park board?
No report.
Moving on to Planning Commission. Planning Commission number 1, the McHugh Road request for annexation and zoning was withdrawn, so there is no action on that. It was withdrawn.
It's all the writing in the law.
You see the trees are gone?
Yes.
So we don't need any action on that withdrawn, right? Move on. Okay. Next would be Crestwood, Yorkville. I will entertain an ordinance, a motion to approve an ordinance approving the First Amendment to the annexation agreement of Yorkville Farms Development, Crestwood, Yorkville Subdivision, Yorkville Christian School, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute.
So moved.
Second.
Comments or questions on this one? Sorry? I don't know.
I was going to say,
Yeah, John.
I know both attorneys.
Yeah, go ahead. John, if you want to start off?
Yes, good evening. John Philipchuk, I'm attorney with offices at 111 East Jefferson Avenue, Yorkville, Illinois. I'm here this evening representing John and Michelle Stewart with regard to the request for the First Amendment to the annexation agreement to accommodate the Yorkville Christian School. There's basically one issue with the annexation agreement I think that's probably in need of finalizing, and that would be the value of an improved acre of land. As you know, the city had commissioned an appraisal in May of 2012 to see what the current market conditions were, and it came in at $30,000. We had our own appraisal done this year. It was just finished last month, August 20th, and the appraiser came in at $25,000 an acre. As you know, the city's ordinance is currently at $101,000. I believe staff has recommended a different number. They're recommending a number of $58,000. I don't believe that's supported by any kind of appraisal. And so I think the only issue I think that we have is to decide if, with regard to this development, and I would remind you with this development that the park isn't so much an issue because there's basically a 10-acre requirement for the subdivision of the park. We're satisfying 6 acres with a donation. The park site has already been laid out as part of Unit 1. And then the park board had asked that we consider for the makeup, the 3-acre makeup, putting in a parking lot to accommodate that park, which my client has agreed to do. It probably is going to just about eat up, if not eat it up, that remaining value. So that's not so much an issue. The other issue, of course, is schools. We have agreed, as a reminder, that we're paying the full school transition fees, $3,000 per house. But the balance of the money on which the donation is based would be to acquire any necessary school sites that would accommodate the needs of the children that are generated from this particular subdivision. I think we're all aware of how aggressive our building program was for schools in the past number of years. So I think we're in pretty good shape in that regard. Your ordinance also says that if that money that you and it is not used in 10 years, it goes back to the owners of the subdivision, the people that bought homes in the subdivision, whoever the lot owners are, the money comes back and it's not expended. So it's not really operating funds for the school district here that we're talking about. We're just talking about funds to buy additional acreage of land if it were needed to provide additional school site to accommodate the residents of the subdivision. So I think when you look in terms of the overall effect, I think our proposal, and we're certainly willing to discuss it with the council, but I think the proposal, we're here awfully close, between 25 and 30,000 acres, to what the number really is as far as the current value of an acre of improved land. So with that, we would propose that let's agree on a number and approve the agreement and move on. I have a couple comments about the plat, and I can save those if that, you want to do that in the next item.
That's fine.
Or you want me to say something now?
Whatever you prefer.
Okay. Next item after this would be, of course, approval of the final plat of subdivision, which will accommodate the layout for the proposed Yorkville Christian High School. And you may recall from last meeting, we're eliminating 84 single-family lots from the development to develop this approximately 32-acre site. And I think we only really have one issue left with regard to that, and that is that staff is recommending that the plat be approved, subject to the comments of your city engineer. And one of those criteria that the city engineer pointed out is he wants to see an off-site storm sewer put in now to drain the subdivision to the ditch, to the south of the land. And in order to accommodate that, this storm sewer pipe would have to be constructed, and we need to have the city acquire from the blocks the necessary easements. So I would suggest that they requested that this be done to eliminate any nuisance flows coming onto their property. So I think it's only fair that they would donate the necessary easements to the cities to accommodate that construction. And then, of course, same thing with the road. We have some Ashley Road improvements we'll be doing. Some at the request of IDOT at the intersection. And again, because it's prescriptive right away there may be a need for a donation of some land for an easement to accommodate that widening at the intersection. So I think that the Block family agrees to accommodate the city with regard to providing those easements. I think everything has been addressed by them. Unless you have any questions for me.
I do have two clarifications. We got, I think, a little bit ahead of what we're going to present from the staff level on both the park board recommendation, the park land cash recommendation, and then the engineering comments in the final plat. So I'm going to take a step back. There is a memo on each one of the council members' desks dated September 10th from Christy Barksdale Noble. And as referenced by the attorney, the final plat ordinance that was originally included in your packet contained a phrase in section 2, under the therefore section, that said that the final plat would be approved, basically subject to items 60 through 63 in the engineer's comment letter. And so we are proposing, as he stated, to strike the words items 60 through 63 inclusive. And so then the section 2 would read generally that the amendments are required pursuant to the city's engineer letter dated September 5th, attached here to and made a part of. So it had the effect of incorporating all the comments in the engineer's letter on the final plat. So,
Which would include 60 to 63.
correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So it would be all included. Correct.
And it would contain the number, and I'm not sure which one it is that the attorney is objecting to regarding, or he's making a comment on the easement as it relates to the off-site stormwater issue. Second, on the actual agreement itself, before I get into potential workaround of the park board land for the park land cash donation, is the attorney made a reference to the park board's recommendation being that they would accept generally a parking lot in lieu of their remaining 3 acres and change of parkland cash obligation. And they were willing to accept parking lot construction as a credit towards that dollar amount, but then if there was any remaining dollar amount that was unfulfilled, they were requesting $80,000 per acre land cash valuation to be approved as part of the development. And I believe that was going to be paid off at the time of building permit. And then their subsequent recommendation, if that wasn't acceptable to the city council, was that we just wait until the final plat of Unit 2 is done, which is basically the southern half of the subdivision, and then make a determination at that time. And I addressed that specific issue in my memo that was dated September 5th, which was appended to the last part of the packet. And basically that says, when you don't have reasons, you don't have the petitioner asking you for something and you're negotiating an annexation agreement amendment, the city has less leverage and less authority to be able to negotiate a different land cash value dollar amount at some point in the future. And then additionally, there's no guarantee that they're ever going to construct Unit 2. So we've seen that in other subdivisions. We have it in Prairie Meadows. It's totally constructed, the single family section. Remy Schneider Park is in. Luckily, it was built with OSLED grant funds, so we had money to do the park. But we received no parks land cash dollars from Prairie Meadows subdivision because in the annexation agreement we approved a section that says they don't owe us anything until I think it's Unit 4 out there. But it's the townhome section that's the field directly behind the Nards. So they have no intent, as far as I know, to build that anytime in the near future. So that obligation is outstanding. There is, too, another letter from me on the Parks Land Cash donation dated September 10th, again, passed out today. Reflects generally a conversation that I had with Mr. Philipchuk, I think it was on Friday, perhaps. Really, the City Council has two ways to negotiate a land cash donation obligation. We can do it by ordinance, so we pass the ordinance and it applies equally to every property in Yorkville without having to negotiate it into an annexation agreement amendment. And the way we've got our ordinance set up is we do our land cash evaluations every year or so, we adopt our number, and then when somebody makes a final plat request, they pay it 1/3 at the time of final plat, 1/3 a year from there, and then 1/3 a year beyond that. So that's our strict, normal, you ask for a final plat, you don't ask for any concessions. That's how we administer Parks Land Cash obligations. And the other way to do that is to negotiate an annexation agreement amendment, which we have much wider authority to do so. We can ask for a higher dollar amount, lower dollar amount. It doesn't have to be based necessarily on an appraisal value. I wouldn't recommend that that's good policy per se, but you have that ability. And then you can also negotiate the timing of the payment. So when I presented those two options to Mr. Philipchuk a few days ago, he indicated that the petitioner might be willing to accept our normal payment timing schedule of 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, if we would accept a lower dollar amount. To me, from a policy recommendation perspective, just looking at the current value of the money, it's advantageous for us to take even a little bit of money now rather than take maybe a little bit more money over a longer period of time. So even if we only get $40,000 or $50,000 out of this project currently for the final plat, if we can turn that into a mini park or we can do some improvements to the park, whereas if you accept or hold out for $80,000 an acre and it's paid over building permits over 20 years, we might not ever be able to save up that kind of money to do one large park in the subdivision. So he indicated that the 1/3 payments might be acceptable, but he needs it at the $25,000 value. I said that wouldn't be my recommendation to City Council. My specific recommendation is included in the new Exhibit C, and it is open-ended. But I'm recommending that the City Council say, citywide, we need to do a new land cash appraisal, because we haven't done one in a year. We used to do it about once every year, and put it in this agreement so that they don't owe us any land cash until we do the appraisal, we adopt the appraisal, and then we send them an invoice for 1/3 within 30 days of that timeline, and then the other 2/3 are due within a year of final plat approval tonight, assuming we approve it, and then 1/3 the year from that point. So we would be, in essence, mimicking the current city's land cash donation ordinance, both timing, schedule, and dollar value. We're just admitting right now that $101,000 per acre, which is our current value by ordinance, isn't necessarily specifically and uniquely attributable to current conditions. So that's my recommendation. So if you wanted to just scratch out Exhibit C in the exhibit and adopt this, you would be able to adopt this by motion. Petitioner hasn't agreed to this formally. They've indicated that the 1/3 payment of the lower dollar amount is acceptable.
Okay, before we go any further, let's flesh your mind. Let's, because it would be nice if we got through this tonight. Let's talk about this land cash. Comments or questions on that?
Yeah, I don't think anybody in the right mind thinks $101,000 is the actual value of the property in Yorkville at this point.
Shucks.
I know, shucks. I guess the justification, the city needs to have, Ms. Orr, if I'm correct, the city needs to have a justification for the number that we have, correct?
Yes, unless it's negotiated. Mark gave a perfect example that happened before our time. What was it, Prairie what?
Prairie Meadows.
Prairie Meadow, where instead of following our ordinance, what was negotiated, the annexation agreement was permission to pay with each building permit. So it never happened because the subdivision tanked.
So the question I have is, I like following our ordinances, because once we stop following our ordinances, then everybody comes and says, well, you didn't follow the ordinance for that guy, don't follow the ordinance for me. The problem is, our ordinances seems to be broken. So I think short term, I'm okay as long as we fix the ordinance. And the question I have behind doing the citywide evaluation is, we just did one, and it came back for us $30,000 an acre. So why are we doing another one when we already, I mean, I understand their number's 25, ours is 30, obviously we're not too far apart, but why are we paying to do another one when we just did one?
We did it a year ago, and our normal timing interval was between 1 and 2 years. So I'm not guaranteeing that the value is going to be more than it was last time. It might be less than 25. I'm just saying the objective to this petitioner, and then also to objectively apply to every other development in the city, we should go through and do one and then just adopt the appraisal value. We should do our own level.
What's the cost of the appraisal?
It was a couple $1,000, like $2,500, I want to say.
Just, do you know, Carol? For now?
For now.
Just stay on my cash.
Yeah, go on.
I think we did our assessment, that's correct. They did theirs. I think this is being objective to them. With them doing what is allowed within the ordinance to provide an appraisal, that's allowing an objective point of view. I don't think that anybody can dispute that. If we go back after they've done that, after we've done our appraisal, and go and do an appraisal, then we're not giving that objective point of view, I don't believe. We're being counterproductive to our ordinance, which allows them to do their own appraisal. 2006 is the last time we did a appraisal that we adopted. That's when everybody saw the light, things were starting to change. Very few communities after that did appraisals because they knew they could stick with that number, and very few of them were getting those dollar values right now. We had 4 years we did them consecutively. Before that, it was between 6 and 12 years, something like that we were doing. We stopped doing the appraisals and stopped adopting them when we realized we wouldn't get that money. The ratings on the wall, $101,000 unrealistic. $58,000 is not a substantiated dollar amount. We have two numbers that are out there, $25,000 and $30,000, which are substantiated, and I think we can work with one of the two. I know the park board doesn't like that. The fact of the matter is, we can either be proactive as a community and make this work with the development, and face the reality that the market has changed. The values are in that range. I don't think the developer is going to agree to an open-ended study that takes up to 2 months to get a new assessment and just have that number written in at the end. We get blank checks don't work very well. I know that from developer backgrounds. That won't happen. We can either block them here or we can work with them. I think 30,000, the study we did, is valid, albeit over a year. $25,000 is there. I think we do have to room to work and come to terms on this one through the development agreement versus adopting a full study. I think we have the potential to do a new appraisal through committee and then reassess it there, but I think this one we need to work on just here for this one through our negotiations and come to terms with either $25,000 or $30,000.
What is the ballpark cost of the parking lot that our board is seeking? Any idea?
I was under the impression it was going to be $40,000 to $50,000.
It just depends. We weren't told how many parking stalls you need, so
Sure.
until we know that number, we can't. Maybe we can give you a ballpark, but we don't know the number of spaces.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait till you recognize her. So it's 3.5 acres we're talking about here, so roughly a little over 90,000. I mean, if you put in the parking lot, you still have some left over for some sort of money at least. Go ahead, sir.
Well, do we need two things? Would there be more cash available to the park board to park if the parking lot wasn't put in that? And the second would be, are we opening up a precedent for other developers to come ask us to do the same thing in their situations? I'm not sure of that.
Well, it's all informal precedent because our practice has been to negotiate a parks land cash donation for each annexation agreement or amendment as it comes forward to the city. So in 2004, 5, and 6, we would just tell developers at the time, don't do an appraisal. It's not going to be worth your time and effort. We know that you want parks. We want parks. We want to be able to fund them. Let's work it out and negotiate it into the agreement. Both timing of construction, who has to pay for it, those type of things. So we've gotten away from saying each developer should come to us with their own appraisal, just because at the time it was probably unreasonable for us to say, okay, we're reviewing 10 different requests for subdivisions and there's 10 different values because they're on different sides of the town. So, and they're done by 10 different developers. So we had gotten away from that during the boom because of that reason. Now, you could deviate from that and go any way you want. There'd be no legal precedent, I don't think, in adopting it one way under a negotiation and then doing it a different way.
No, the law states that an annexation agreement can include any term that is not otherwise prohibited by law. And so land cash is our own ordinance. So that's where Barb is right. We couldn't negotiate that.
So it's not setting a real precedent.
Correct. It would just make my explanation a bit more difficult each time I'm negotiating with the developer.
And you had a second part to your question.
What the other one was, if they chose not to do the parking lot with all the...
Yeah, our obligation for parkland is based on a mathematical calculation of the number of residents generated in the subdivision, and so it sets the total requirement, which is about 10 acres in this subdivision. And so they donated about 6.5 acres. They owe us 3.5, and so that's the upper end level that we're still negotiating with. Is the value of 3.5 acres of land. So we take the parking lot, you would deduct $20,000 from whatever that total obligation, unfulfilled obligation.
Or if you chose not to take the parking lot, then it's more money in your pocket.
Correct.
But I'm assuming they would want a parking lot there.
The recommendation was to put a parking lot there and to accept credit for it. So.
Yes, sir.
Just a question for Art. If we did not have this developer before us, would we be going ahead with a new appraisal anyways?
Yeah, I think so. Even though we did it last year, just with the uptick I've seen, I think I'd be recommending to do it again just to see if it's moved at all. And to formally adopt one by ordinance for the people that don't want to negotiate with us, they want to just subdivide and then pay whatever's on our ordinance, it would at least be there. So.
Yes, sure.
To go over some of the points that you mentioned, first of all, I would not support reducing the land cash amount. I don't think we should start doing something like that. I would support having the city perform another updated appraisal. And then I want to get back to the blocks donation of easements to the city. I'm not quite sure why we are asking the blocks to donate anything. They've had problems with the city in the past, and I'm not quite sure how long ago it was. but their drain tiles were totally destroyed. Our engineer, our former engineer, went out and looked at it and said it had nothing to do with the development or with the city, and they weren't responsible. So of course it was cost them money through litigation, and just to find out that the city basically and the developer were responsible for damaging their drain tiles. So I don't think that at this time or at any time we should ask the blocks for any kind of donation out of the goodness of their heart. I'm totally against that as well. I don't know what their reaction would be. I would guess.
Rose, I think you misunderstand the issue. The issue is to avoid any damage to their property. Your engineer is suggesting that we go off their property with a storm sewer pipe and pipe it directly to the next tributary down there, the open ditch, okay? So by us building that, we accommodate their request that we don't want our property damaged by any water, okay? Now, who controls the ability to get to that ditch? The blocks do. So in one hand, you're telling us, do this, and the other hand, you're telling me, well, we're not going to make the blocks contribute anything. Well, wait a minute. How do I get to that point to discharge the water if the blocks don't cooperate and give the city the easements necessary to build it? You see the point? The point is that they're asking for something. Your engineer is agreeing with it, and you're telling us, yes, do this. And all we're saying is, yes, we'll do this, but they need to also cooperate and provide the easements so we can build that pipe. We can't build the pipe without the easements.
What kind of guarantee would they have that they're not going to have the detention ponds and building this pipe? And what guarantee do they have that it will not damage their property?
I would suggest that you have your own independent engineer that's looked at this EEI, and they've reviewed all the engineering, and they're looking at what they call the nuisance discharge at this point. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. But all of the water is being held according to all of your ordinances as far as the on-site stormwater detention is concerned. It's just that they don't want the nuisance flows to come onto their property or into their town system. So we don't go that direction, we go this direction. So the guarantee is most people understand that engineering principle that if you take the water and you put it in that pipe and it's gravity fed to that ditch, that's where it's going to go. It's not going to go to their property. So that's the reason for it.
Okay, I would like to also request that we speak with the blocks and get their feelings on what is being proposed.
Well, their attorney's here, we'll give them a chance to speak if you want us to. I wanted to get through this lane cache thing first, then we can ask Mr. Mahoney and stuff. Any other comments on lane cache? That we'd like to go around the table and get everyone's input on it.
Well, when we did that study, and it seems like it was longer than a year ago, on the appraisal.
May
May. Okay. My feeling was that we should have changed our land cash at that time, but everybody thought that we should leave it. I think that we should go back, since there is development coming in, that we should go back to having, installed regularly so we don't run into this problem. But I think that we do have numbers to work with. I agree with Chris on that we do have numbers, but we should, especially because things are starting to come back in, to be more proactive on that so we don't run into this. Because I really felt strongly that we should have changed it then. But
No, and we talked about it, but decided we're taking on a case-by-case basis.
I know.
Nobody wants to give up that $101,000.
I mean, but it's fine.
Plus, you're talking for it. And I think you're going to see that. A lot of communities haven't touched our land cash ordinance yet. They all are very high from the peak, but when you start seeing people change it, usually just there.
What are the odds the appraisal is going to be much different than $5,000?
Couldn't tell you. I'm not I study home value trends, but acre of improved land, I don't have the rules on.
It just seems like 101 sounds awful. Maybe we should go with that, but it's not. Unless, of course, you've got to change your car in 10, 15, 20 minutes. But I like the the idea of staying on schedule. I like the idea of getting money now, third. I just don't see 58 or 80 or 101 as being feasible at the moment. But I like the idea of having the appraisal done. I just think that set the number now, get something going, and then get that appraisal done, and then we get that home. It's like two separate issues almost at the same time. Just do something.
Yeah, what I would not like to see is to hold up this project for us to go get an appraisal. I would like to see us negotiate the value with them if we could right now. I personally prefer the $30,000 number. Obviously, it's higher, $5,000 higher than their appraisal, but it's what our appraisal reasonably said, and I think we're much more in the ballpark with our old appraisal from last year than our previous appraisal from 7 years ago. So we negotiated that into the annexation agreement for this project, but then also get the wheels started on the appraisal so we can reset our coordinates at something that's more reasonable here on forward. And as the mayor said, right, Diane, I'm agreeing with you. I'm agreeing with you and I'm agreeing with Chris. I absolutely. And as the mayor said, no other community has been doing this. Well, maybe we're that beacon that's showing the other communities that it's time to do this, and maybe that will also engage more development, not just residential, but I mean, obviously, we're trying to encourage business and commercial and things of that nature. We got a shopping center that's half empty and things of that nature. If we show that we're willing to work, but not give away the farm, I think it's going to be beneficial for everybody in Yorkville. We know that the more businesses, the more sales, the more alternative tax revenue we have, that means less burden on the taxpayer when it comes to property taxes. So I would like to see a $30,000 number in this agreement, get an appraisal for future reference, and then we'll get to the drainage issue in a second once we get to that point.
So what I'm hearing pretty much is 30,000 to third, and third payable. I think that's probably going to be agreeable to everyone.
Yeah, I was going to say 30,000, one third. And when it comes to us doing our appraisal, we started the appraisal process, the discussions of it in late 2011. We're now September 2013. It took us a long time to go through the discussions of, do we want to do it? Do we do it? And then we had it approved in July of 2012 to be tabled until the park board could make a recommendation. Once we go through and review this appraisal, I don't want us sitting on this waiting for park board. Park board took months to, take their time to review it, analyze it, and get something back to us. It's not going to happen this time. We need to do something now. We've already been working on this for 2 years. Let's get it done. 30,000, I think it'll work.
All right, everyone good with that? 30,000, third?
Just a quick question. We put this in the agreement. They either take it or leave it, is what it amounts to. Right?
Basically. Basically, yes. I mean, is that going to be acceptable to your clients? I mean, I think it's a fair, that's what our appraisal was. It's fair. Our ordinance reads 30,000, and be done with it.
I plan on this.
So what we would be, sir, is a motion to amend item number 11 on Exhibit C. It would be 11A.
On the amended Exhibit C.
Pardon?
On the amended Exhibit C.
On the amended Exhibit C. Thank you very much. That's Exhibit C. That's on the agenda. On the amended Exhibit C, 11A should say value per acre, $30,000, and the rest of that notation be deleted.
I would make a motion to amended Exhibit C, Section 11A, to read $30,000 per acre, and the rest of the section to be stricken.
We have a motion and a second. Comments on the amendment?
Kathy, for motion purposes, do they need to adopt the amended Exhibit C before they amend the amended Exhibit C?
What is before them was the amended Exhibit C.
Okay.
That's the position we're going to take.
As long as we're all on the same page.
One amendment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Question on the amendment?
Yes. What's the status of the parking lot in this thing? Or
They will build the parking lot, and anything left over, we build for,
correct? Yeah, it would have to be approved by the park board at a later date, both design, size, and then it would have to be verified as to how much they actually paid for it, and they would get a credit as a result of that.
The language on Exhibit C, I can't talk about design, but it says actual cost of paving parking lot as evidenced by paid invoice. so that there'll never be any dispute. The question would be where and how it's designed, and I can't imagine that we would figure over that.
Okay, everyone's okay with the amendment? Yes, roll call, please.
Funkhauser.
Aye.
Bilshuski.
Aye.
Coe.
Aye.
Teeling.
Aye.
Readers.
Aye.
Cott.
Aye.
Walsall.
Aye.
Spears.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, now we're back to the original amendment motion. Any comments going back to the original?
I guess now we have to discuss the drainage.
Yeah.
No, that's not what
Well, that's on the, what?
that's when you come to the plat.
Right.
Well, but do we want to vote on the annexation before we know what we're going to do with the plat? That's my question.
Right.
I don't want to vote on the
Then
annexation
we
before I
can
know what
discuss
to do
it.
with the plat.
Right, then let's discuss it all, and we'll go to vote from right away. So, back to the drainage.
Again,
Right, I mean, it was clear, well, I mean.
just to recap it, it's a fairly simple issue. We'll agree with your engineer. We just need to get the cooperation of the blocks. It'll be
Well,
fine.
I agree. I mean, Mr. Kevin, sir, I'd like to hear what the blocks have to say. I don't want the blocks property affected negatively by this development.
Right.
I think we all agree on that. The question is, they are proposing a certain fix. Our engineer says that fix will do it. I intend to agree with this fix, and I want it done. However, the catch is to do the fix, we need an easement from the blocks to do the very thing they desire. So I would like to hear from Mr. Kavanaugh or the blocks, or are we in the same hemisphere?
I'd be happy to.
I didn't think you'd object, Mr. Kavanaugh.
Not at all. It is.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Mahoney. I apologize. You know these lawyers.
It's all the same. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm George Mahoney. I, with the law firm of Mahoney, Sullivan & Cross in Oswego, Illinois, and Joliet. And I represent the Block family. And really, there's three things that I'd like to chat with you about today. Stormwater, safety, and policy. You know, I think, Mayor, the issue came a long way today, but I'm really kind of befuddled by my good friend, Mr. Philipchuk, because it's really clear that his client's drainage from their site on the school and in this really undeveloped subdivision has caused damage to my client's property, and yet the developer of the school site said, we recognize we're creating damage, but to fix it, we need to go through your property, the Block's property. So essentially what they're suggesting is we want you to give us property in order to solve our problem that we're creating for you. I mean, that theory just doesn't make sense. But let me assure you, Mayor, that I have not talked to my clients about that. I know that the issue and the proposal is a good proposal. And one of the things that I'd like to see, and our engineer will talk to you about that, is the timing of that proposal. And Mayor, so you're aware, once I have the opportunity to talk to the Blocks, we'd be happy to sit down with city staff to talk about those issues and how to best do that and to see what we can do to make this work. The other issue is safety, and I'd like to have our engineer, Jeff Chakowski from Christopher Burke Engineering, whose office has looked not only at the stormwater management structures on this site, but their traffic engineering department has also looked at the safety components, not only for Pendon Drive, Ashley Road, but also those intersections at Schoolhouse Road 126. So as I'm introducing Jeff, I'd like to give you some things that you might take a look at. And the first is, and these are not my words, ladies and gentlemen, but the words out of the Kendall County Record of Thursday, September 5, 2013, when they talked about the continuing carnage along Route 126. And in fact, Mayor, the Kendall County Record came to this community to say, join the county in making a concerted effort to determine how we can improve the safety and eliminate the death and carnage along 126. And so Jeff will talk to you about that. The other issue that I'm going to give you, an exhibit I'm going to give you, is basically his suggestions on what this board might consider, because essentially what you're doing is you're building a school at this location with what is projected to be 850 students who are arriving principally, I would assume, in buses to come to this site, who are turning principally off Schoolhouse Road, Route 126, to get into this location. And you can imagine what you need to consider, because I know this board does not want to say we did not carefully consider all those issues before we approved this. Because if a child dies and you didn't, I know how my conscience would also be. So let me give that to you as I introduce Jeff to talk to you about those two issues, please, Mayor.
Good evening. Like George mentioned, my name is Jeff Chalkowski. I'm with Christopher Berg Engineering, and we're representing the Block family. And let me speak first on the issue of drainage. George mentioned that the proposal to build the outside storm sewer down Ashley Road is a good one. As we've gone through this process of reviewing the development, reviewing the stormwater plans, going back to when the subdivision was initially planned, we were very pleased to see in the most recent review letter from the engineer that it was required. We are completely in favor of it. I think all the engineers have discussed it. And from the stormwater perspective, the storm sewer is a long-term solution that is needed. We just planted some blocks, the blocks agree. So the technical issue of the stormwater management, I don't think we have any disagreements with what the proposed solution should be. The question is the timing of that. And certainly we would like to see it be done as a condition of the current development, and that it be done as soon as possible. The other issues with regards to traffic, our firm reviewed the traffic report that was part of the engineering for the developments. And while I wouldn't say we have any strong disagreements with the contents, I guess I describe it as the minimum requirements of what might be required here. And we feel like there are some improvements, some additional improvements that should be considered that would make the overall traffic plan run smoother and be safer. And those are depicted just very generally in the figure that George went to. First on Ashley Road, based on the numbers in the traffic report as far as the expected traffic generation from the school, we feel that a southbound right turn lane into the development from Ashley Road is warranted. All those the buses George talked about coming down Ashley Road to get into the site, it's going to be traffic flow much smoother and avoid backups on Ashley Road. We feel that's warranted based on the data in the traffic study. To correspond with that improvement, it would make sense then to do it at the same intersection, a northbound left turn lane into the site from Ashley as well. So those are actually road improvements that you see on that sketch there. The others are on Route 126, where we were pleased to see the traffic report recommend left turn lanes into the site. Those would be westbound left turn lanes from 126 onto both Ashley and Penman Road. We agree strongly with that recommendation. However, we feel that corresponding eastbound right turn lanes into the site would be warranted. Not strictly based on the expected traffic, but just from a safety issue. You've got 50-mile-per-hour posted speed limit, but people traveling much faster on 126, potentially coming up on a stopped car, turning right into the sites, which would be much safer to give them a dedicated turn lane and to remove them from the through lanes of traffic. So those are the recommendations we'd like you to consider. In our experience, the sooner that we get those out there to be considered, the better off we make as far as planning for this.
Before we get into a couple of the questions, can we have Christy and Brad maybe comment on their recommendations to give some context?
Sure. On the storm sewage, I think it's pretty well documented what the issue is. Basically, what we're trying to avoid is a nuisance flow issue onto the neighboring property. So the recommendation for the off-site storm sewer down Ashley Road has been out there for a long time. It was originally recommended back in 2005 during the review of the preliminary engineering plan. So it's not something new. It does require cooperation from the adjacent property owners as currently designed to construct the relief sewer. So the plan has been drafted. Actually, final engineering has been reviewed and approved for the offsite storm sewer several years ago. It would have to be reissued and reevaluated, but I wouldn't anticipate too many changes with that. So it seems like generally everybody's in agreement. It's just a matter of working out any easement issues along those lines. On the traffic study report, especially as it relates to Route 126, those improvements will be dictated by IDOT. The traffic study and any subsequent plans will have to be submitted to the state. They will review them and they will certainly offer their opinions on the right turn lanes and what areas that were noted by the block's engineers. So those will be evaluated by them. We have yet to see any comments back from IDOT on any traffic studies or any plans at this point. So those are outstanding. We have requested those comments upon receipt, and those will have to be addressed when those are issued.
Anything else, Bart? Chris,
I'd like a couple questions. The nuisance drainage is an acceptable practice by state law based on discharges, correct? The nuisance is the amount of outflow that we have coming from one site to another. That's an acceptable practice. The problem is we have a downstream site that is not conducive to those nuisance flows that are extended out over a long period of time. So we're trying to, with this agreement, trying to accommodate that. Accommodating them, we need to enact that plan that was put in place for the drainage. I think we have 2 weeks to do that. I don't think that's probably unreasonable to try to get that done. Get the easements in place. Worst case scenario would be we can't get easements with that drainage plan. That puts a roadblock up. That stops this development from being able to happen if they get into a disagreement. Best case scenario, 2 weeks, we have agreements from the blocks on the drainage piece to mitigate the nuisance flow, put it underground, the drain tile, that problem solved. Simply put, the part about the traffic flows, would your firm typically go above and beyond the minimum requirements for state standard for the regulations and impose those on your own client at additional cost? I understand you did say that these you feel they would be better.
Correct. I think when it's a safety issue, we've got to consider that. And like I said, I work based on the standards of traffic studies. I think I pointed out where the numbers warranted it and when it didn't. If you feel like the right turn lane Ashley Road, the numbers do warrant it. So I guess in that case, I wouldn't say the minimums are peanuts. Beyond that, our recommendation though we feel is best for the safety.
I'm not downplaying safety issues. We don't want to bring bus traffic, or bus travel is one of the safer modes of transportation. However, on high-speed roads, there are potentials. The standards that I think were imposed on the study from KOLA do meet the requirements. And as we all said, IDOT is going to have that final say no matter what we impose. They can always come down from those standards. They can require more. It's clear that 126 Schoolhouse Road is on IDOT's radar to be approved with everything that's been happening on that road. It's creeping up on their list. It's not been a high priority for them, but I think that the traffic is going to be an issue. However, the study does show reduced traffic numbers with reduction of residences. It's being reduced by a couple hundred car counts, automobile counts by the reduction, the changes there. As long as they're meeting these standards, we can go above and beyond and require that, but IDOT will have the final say. I can't necessarily say that that's the best way for us to go is impose our own standards because it feels like it would be better. There are principles in place to guide us and provide the standards. I'm not a traffic engineer, I've got that background. I'm going by what my engineer is providing us, and I think that's in the engineering that we need to leave that to them and then ultimately to IDOT whenever they get around to it.
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with your engineer's description of the process by which that would be designed. I think that our suggestions here are things that we think we should consider.
The safety and the stormwater, I think they're generally being addressed. I think this is something, I don't want to push this off too long. I'd like to see it within the next couple of weeks or maybe nights, with caveat of having other pieces put in place, such as the drainage study, or the engineering plans for the drainage title through the blocks, as long as they're willing to accommodate that.
If I can make one more quick statement regarding the drainage issue. To my knowledge, that comment has been requested for some time and has not been incorporated to the engineering. And I don't believe anyone approach the blocks to obtain the easements. So I don't want the blocks to be paying us if they're easements, if they're obstructing the process. I don't believe they've been approached.
Well, one of the things you're not too sure was about the timing, about the detention basin, correct? And that's, I think, originally back in the day when this was developed, it was once phase 2 is put in, the detention basin is going to be put in. And that's where your concern arises, correct?
That's my understanding. I don't know what the mechanism was that would have required them to put the storm sewer in, but we requested it to be done.
Okay, so I mean, from my personal perspective, this has to be done eventually. I mean, I think we don't wait for phase 2. We agree or negotiate to put this in immediately. But obviously we need your client's cooperation to do it immediately, accelerate the basin. So we have it in, you talked about guarantee. What guarantees do the blocks have that their issue will be taken care of? Kind of like the same thing with the payments. You know, we, in some subdivisions, put the payments off to the end, and they never came. So if we put the basin off to the end, it might never come. So to alleviate their concern about that, I'm for accelerating the basin to now. Let's put it in. Let's do that. Once again, it goes back onto your clients that we need an easement. Otherwise, we can't accelerate.
Councilman, this is really the first indications that I've had of any request for any easement for the facility.
I understand. I'm not implying that you're clients.
No, we understand that too. Yeah, and really, there's some policy issues that you also might consider, because one of the things, really there are several things that are requested in your annexation agreement. First is a 3,000 square foot facility for the sale of produce and spirit goods and the like, and I understand all that stuff. You know, all of us went to high school and saw a location in the school where that was sold. But look at the annexation agreement and tell yourself where it's to be located. Is it in the school? Is it a freestanding building? I don't know. It talks about produce being sold as a result in connection with the school, and it also talks about an equestrian facility for the students. Take a look at this. I mean, I see sports fields, I see football and soccer and baseball. I don't see any agricultural fields there. Maybe I missed it. I don't see any equestrian areas there. Maybe I missed it. Are the equestrian areas, for example, is it something that is just going to be for the students of this school and other high schools who come and compete? Doesn't say. Or is it something where I go to the school and say, I want to have a rodeo there this weekend and next July, and I want to have people there and rent the facility for an equestrian event and have 5,000 people there? It doesn't say. And so the policy issue that I'm suggesting to you, I'm not saying that these are bad ideas. I'm just saying know what the ideas are so that if they're fit for the community, you can buy into them, so you know what it is. And I think that there are issues that are presented like those that you really, at this point, can't get your arms around because you don't know the full extent of it. So those are the policy issues. The Block family thanks you for your consideration and your time tonight. Mayor, you tell us when you want us to be here. We'll be here to talk about those other issues as far as drainage is concerned. And if you have questions for us, we would entertain answering them now.
Thank you, Mr. Mahoney. In regards to an outbuilding, 3,000 square foot, I mean, under the current zoning, they can only have one main building unless they came back to ZBA, correct?
They can have an accessory structure, but the staff's understanding that the actual, it will be inside the school.
Right.
That retail facility. But they can't have an additional accessory structure.
Then where do we define an accessory structure? 3,000 square feet sounds pretty big.
It's pretty, the maximum lot coverage is 30%, so long as they don't exceed that.
Yes, sir.
Would it not be common for a school facility that has a track field, football, sporting events to have a standalone facility for concessions events? I mean, that's typical.
That would be
So by default, most school districts or schools would have that opportunity. Whether or not they have a standalone, I don't know. It doesn't say that it's standalone or if it's within the school. I don't know. 3,000 square feet sounds big, but it's all logistics on what they do, how they break it up, and we do permit accessory buildings with that. Regarding the equestrian riding arena, yeah, there's nothing that stipulates what it is, but my understanding is that's for temporary stabling of the horses for classes.
Right. And it's actually for the students, and they would not be housing horses for any extended period of time. They would just be bringing them there for an event. They have to stay overnight, and they would be removing them. I believe the petitioner had an exhibit that, I don't know if they brought it this time, that showed level areas of where they would have those equestrian areas. Not looking forward to
And then,
city council.
the last one, just let my mind for a moment there. Apologies, doesn't matter.
Diane, did you have something?
Well, that's what I was going to ask. You don't want to assume, but what's in the drawing is what they're asking for currently, plus the auxiliary building that's not on here.
The drawing there is an exhibit to the annexation agreement, which is Christie might be able to this in the copy. So the physical layout of buildings would be decided in the building permit, site design. So layout could change within the lot. They're asking for final plat re-subdivision to determine where the lot lines are. And then everything else would be by our codes and ordinances.
Right. So that alleviates that. That's our policy, so that I don't believe that there is a policy issue there.
Are they going to be hosting equestrian shows there? Various shows that they have around the counties?
It would only be related to the school and school activity. It's not to have horse shows. We thought that there may be an opportunity to have some competition between, like barrel racing or something for the students, and another school might come in and utilize that and do that. And that was the standard. Yeah, it's a little different than you'd normally expect, but that's he said. It's not riding stables, it's not lessons, it's not open to the public. It's just for the activities of the students.
But it would be advertised type events.
Well, no, not really. Not any more than a swimming competition or a football game.
There's an important determination to be made, though, between what the developer is saying and what's reflected in the agreement. And that's the source of your question, and then what was, I think, was posed by Mr. Mahoney, too. The agreement in its paragraph number 9, or it's item number 9, so it's add an additional paragraph to 24 regarding the school property, page 4. It just says, in addition, the city agrees to permit the following accessory and auxiliary uses as all permitted uses. And then there's bullet points that just says an equestrian riding arena and temporary stadium. It doesn't specifically in the agreement limit it, in my opinion, to school events only, okay? So the way it's currently drafted, it would be open-ended. I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing by our current policy. Think about our current school district. They rent out their facilities to private entities all the time to do circuses or shows in the past. So it's not uncommon, but the agreement doesn't necessarily restrict that use as it's currently drafted.
I think that one word could probably clear this up, and we could say intramural events, school events, so it's only for activities among schools and students, so that it's not an outside entity coming in hosting a rodeo.
But wouldn't that violate our zoning code if they had held a rodeo? So that they could not hold a rodeo because this area is not zoned, it's zoned out, which permits a school in accordance with the plan.
Right, but a school can have an activity such as.
But I guess what I'm saying is our own zoning code would prohibit the rodeo. Our own zoning code would allow it or require it to be intramural, as you point out.
The amended annexation agreement states that.
Also, in considering the parking lot, if you do have other horses coming in, these are large trailers that will provide the transportation for the horses. So I think that we should take that into consideration, the size of the parking lot that would accommodate, and also that would affect the traffic as well. The trailers coming in.
We're going to accommodate buses, school buses, so yes, we'll have plenty of parking areas to accommodate the
Okay, and then I'd like to know what type of farm equipment would be there. Are we talking about like a tractor?
Tractor, combine,
Combine too?
other types of, well, they come in and out. In other words, it's for students to learn how they work and maybe have an opportunity to work on them. Sort of like you might get an automotive shop in a more urban school district. Here, we're going to offer the opportunity that they'd be able to look at farm equipment, how it functions, how it operates, how it can be repaired, etc.
I have a few more questions.
Chris, do you remember yours?
That one's been, but if they wanted to do anything such as a special event, that would require a special use permit or special event permit. They would have to come to us and ask for something if they wanted to go outside what is allowed by zoning.
Or what's not permitted in.
Or what's not permitted. Since this is, we're going by what's in the annexation agreement and what's allowed in the residential zoning. If they wanted to do something
Above and beyond.
that, they would have to come to us, ask us permission, and we either approve or deny that. We've seen that.
Right. If it was something that wasn't an identified permitted use or identified special use that they were going to come in and get a special use permit, then yes, that would be something they need to come and talk to us about.
So the intramural, that limits what they could do, but anything above and beyond that, if they want to do it, they do have to come to us since they don't have flexibility as a public school district has their own abilities to do things. They have to come to us to get permission to do pretty much anything that's not agreed in the annexation agreement.
Correct, and that's a great point that typically these types of developments would be public school and would not come before our zoning or city council because this is a private school. Some of these items that we're discussing now that you would typically see in a typical high school setting would be restricted to our zoning ordinance or to the amended annexation agreement.
I want to get back to the safety issue here. I brought this up at the last meeting and actually had the opportunity to go out there and drive, trying to get turn from Ashley Road westbound on 126. I can see where that's potentially a dangerous situation. And unfortunately, when they do traffic studies, they assume everybody's doing the speed limit. And I think we all in this room know that 126 is notorious for speeders. Such a long stretch without a stoplight or stop sign, people just going faster than they should be. I also realize this is IDOT's decision. But I'd like to see this council conveying in the very strongest terms our concern here. We're talking about putting school children on buses, kids driving themselves, teachers, parents coming and going. And it's a bad situation as it is, and let's not make it worse. And I'd like to see us convey to IDOT either through a letter or through our staff our concern about the safety of this situation.
Joe?
Well, I think a couple weeks ago, Chris had used the term "and then some" as a way of kind of illustrating how important a couple issues were. My two issues, or the two issues we're still discussing, is the drainage and the nuisance drainage kind of fix down there to kind of make sense to do immediately. But then the street safety, my friend here mentioned, I mean, turn lanes, yes, lights maybe, speed tables, hula dancers, whatever you can do to slow those people down, and maybe we can kind of slow down everything in Yorkville on 126. I've personally had a friend of mine who's her husband on 126, not far from this intersection. And I drove by the other day, and it's not too bad at Ashley, but just a little bit to the west, when school's getting out of the middle school, it's insane. So I just wonder if anybody's kind of addressed the fact that you have the traffic from the middle school, the traffic from the high school, and everybody else peeling rubber down 126. I mean, I think it's important to kind of address the drainage, number one, to save, cash and property. But the more and more I sit here and think about it, it's like, yeah, we don't really have any control over what IDOT says as far as your recommendations go. But I'm with you. I mean, we got to hold up some signs and say, please just slow down the entire road. Because I don't care how long it takes me to get to Plainfield, but I don't want anybody else dying on 126, especially when we're talking about buses full of high school kids, buses full of middle school kids, and then the parents that just can't sit. So as much as I want this to go forward, when we do get to that point, I'll take off my shirt and scream, I don't care. Just, you have to do something huge to slow down 26. That's all I want to get at.
Did you say hula dancers?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do.
If I could just make a couple points of clarification. I think one of the documents, that site of the school that was handed out, and that's one of the old versions. That's not the current one. So, yeah, please, if you could talk to Christy if you want to see the more current, updated one. That's the one thing. Second thing is I wanted to make sure you understood that we're not cutting across the catty corner going across the Flock's property. Ashley Road is a prescriptive roadway. So that means the owners on both sides actually own the road and it's subject to an easement for roadway purposes. Okay? If that's what that property is, it can be used for. But with the storm sewer, we're proposing to go in that prescriptive right of way. It's not going out through the farm property. So I just want you to understand that that's not what we're proposing here. And then additionally to that, I know George is just recently to this, and so are the Christopher Burke people. In fact, when Presswick of Yorkville originally came in 2006, there were two letters, one in July and one in August of 2006. They were directed to the then attorney for the blocks, Dallas Ingebrigtsen, and they specifically talked about those easements to handle the stormwater. At that time, that was a phase 2 development, and so it was put off, and it wasn't an immediate need, I guess you might say. Now it's become our issue, and it is an immediate need. But to say that no one's ever approached them, I assume their attorney may have shared this with them, but there were approaches, and the easements have been prepared for them. There's not an expense for them for that. I mean, the easements are prepared. You heard your engineer say that the engineering's been prepared. So, I mean, the bottom line is we're ready to do this, and if the Block family will cooperate to have those easements granted to the city, then we can do the improvement of that storm sewer right away. And also with the recommendations on the safety issues, if we need a little more room to provide some of these additional safety measures, we would hope that they would cooperate if there's an easement that's needed for a little more right-of-way there, especially at the intersection. So that I just wanted to clarify those points. And we're happy to meet if the staff can facilitate that. The sooner the better. If it's council intention to bring us back on September 24th council meeting, that would be great. We're happy to sit down and talk about it and have those easement documents, sure.
John Soroway, we're prepared to sit down with you.
Absolutely, great. Thank you.
Good conversation. Okay, any other questions? Comments, concerns? Ready to vote? Yes, sir.
No, I'm not. I think at this point, I think we table it to the 24th, give the two parties the opportunity to negotiate and sit down and talk about this. And if we have easements and we're ready to go and accelerate the basin, okay, we're rubber stamp it 2 weeks from now.
And everything should be nailed and ready to go in 2 weeks?
That's why. We're 1/3 of the parties for that agreement, so yes, within our 1/3.
We'll make sure, because you're not going to be here in 2 weeks, right?
Correct.
Okay, so we will entertain a motion to table 2 weeks.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Walsall.
Aye.
Spears.
Aye.
Funkhauser.
Aye.
Lichtenstein.
Aye.
Coe.
Aye.
Teeling. Aye. Readers.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, we'll see everyone in 2 weeks. I have no CBA report. No city council reports, city clerk,
No report.
community engagement reports. No staff reports. Additional business. The additional business, I have a couple of things. Hometown days, we're out there, it was a little, take, let's just say, the least. We lost pretty much all Friday night, most of Sunday. So I'm anxious to see what our financial reports are, but I don't think they'll be pretty. You guys help, but our staff is incredible. I mean, guys are out there working, keeping things moving, and you know, they had a lot of water and they kept it going. Kudos to the staff. Everyone was out there working, Scott and Tim and Laura and Shay. Everyone was out there doing their thing, so it was good to see. This coming Sunday is Senior Services Fashion Show. I will be donning attire from Marshall's in Yorkville. I went in the other day and they dressed me. I said, I'm in your good hands. I said, my wife usually dresses me, but I'm like, that's good this time. So that is next Sunday, and all of you are invited. The city will have a table there. Everyone is able to come and hang out. The Senior Services is right next door, and we hardly get a chance to intermingle with them, so it'd be good if we had some support out there. That's all I have for additional business. Anything else? If not, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session for discussion of meeting minutes and litigation and collective bargaining. No collective bargaining. So litigation and meeting minutes. Second. Roll call.
Funkhauser.
Aye.
Lichtenstein. Aye. Coe.
Aye.
Teeling.
Aye.
Readers.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Walsall.
Aye.
Spears. Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you. Do you have any specific comments or?
I'm in a community psychology class for the university classes. I had to come to a city meeting and someone they did email you some questions and you can answer on your leisure.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
30% of my grade lays out.
Oh, you're right on with that.
Happy to help.
Happy to help. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that, I don't know how long executive session was going to be. I didn't want you just sitting out here waiting to make a comment, so. That pretty much adjourns the meeting, except for no action to be taken after executive session.